We have the opportunity to talk with Raj Beri, who's the founder and CEO of Adadyn. And the first thing I would like to ask is to introduce briefly what he was doing, long experience, and to get him to know a little bit better.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so I've been in travel for the better part of the last 10 years, and I started off working with large brands like Travelocity and Sabre, and there, I was in charge of a lot of the marketing budgets as well. And one of the easy things I found when I was at a larger organization is that when you're doing marketing, you have large teams, and you have a lot of support. You have agencies, and you have other things. So after I left Travelocity, I actually started my own travel, online business, and then I was part of a mid-sized travel brand. And there, I actually found it was hard for me to access a lot of these marketing channels that I had as a large brand, and it was hard for me to compete in search advertising and other facets. So that's actually the genesis behind how we decided to launch this Adadyn platform, because it's a bunch of ex-travel marketers and a bunch of ad tech vets, so people from Travelocity, Sabre, Google, Criteo, that got together and said, how can we make complex marketing technologies available to smaller travel brands? So when I say smaller, I'm really saying under 25, under 50 million, I would say, under 50 million in revenue. And that's really what our passion is just we're a bunch of ex-marketers that said, hey, can we create a platform that smaller travel marketers can use? And that's really how we got started with kind of launching the Adadyn platform, which we unveiled here yesterday.
Could you talk a little bit more about what that platform is?
Yeah.
You told us that what we've heard it's great. So because it's one of the great problems of, as you say, small, medium size OTIs is how can we compete in terms of traffic acquisition with all these large companies, and how do you make that possible?
Yeah, so basically what we found is the pain point was there was this technology, and what we use is called programmatic advertising. And what programmatic advertising is just really the algorithmic buying and selling of ads, so display, mobile, social, video, so anything outside of search, but it behaves like search. So if you remember how display ads used to be sold, it was pretty much, hey, you would have an insertion order, you would go and you would buy some impressions on somebody's site. So what programmatic does is actually makes it behave more like search. So it's an auction-based system, and you're buying one, like if you come to a site and they know it's you, you go up for auction. And in that milliseconds time, someone wins your bid, and so they place that ad there. So it's making display and social and mobile perform much more like search. And so what we found the problem was, hey, there's this great channel. It's not as competitive as search. It's cheaper, but it's hard to do on your own. So there's two options for marketers to use it. One is they could outsource it to a trading desk or an agency. And if you're a smaller travel brand, that's expensive. You're not open to say, hey, I'm going to give you 30% on top of what I'm paying to do that. And so the other option is, okay, can I do this in-house? If I have a small marketing team of one person that's doing some search, can this person do it? And that's the pain point, because it was too complex. You needed kind of a PhD and you needed a data science background in order to run these kind of technologies. And so that's what we decided to do is, can we take what was a very complex technology and make it simple enough so that a small marketing team that maybe doesn't have a background in this could use it? And so what our platform does is it automates what used to be done by traders, by PhDs and scientists, so that 80% is automated through our algorithms, and the inputs are much like search. So for example, if you came in and just said, I want to target some users in Europe, looking for, let's say in Spain, looking for a hotel, you would just enter in your targeting parameters. You would enter in what is the KPIs you're looking for. So I want to get conversions at under this cost per acquisition, and then our algorithmic decision engine will decide where to best spend your money to make those happen. So that's really what we do is we simplify. Okay. So, one way to kind of showcase how programmatic would work for, let's say, a smaller travel advertiser is just to give an example. So let's just say you're a small hotel brand and you have like a bed and breakfast hotel in Europe, and you want someone to come and visit your site or your mobile app. And now, using a platform like the one we have, you would enter in similar parameters to search. So you would say, where do I want to target? Do I want to target these geographies, these cities? You would say, what type of interests do I want to target? You know, people who are interested in travel, people interested in vacation rentals. And then you would just put in things like, at what time of day do I want to target and across which devices? And so if you're seeing a similarity there, it's very much like search in how you set it up. And you know, the one thing with programmatic is that it does give you the ability to dynamically rotate and show different ads based on who is coming in. And so in our platform, we have dynamic creative personalization as well as, you know, the programmatic media buying. And in travel especially, that is a very huge combination to put together, because what you see is huge conversion rate increases when you get dynamic ads combined with programmatic. We're seeing often 300% increase in click-through from our hotel brands, you know, tours and activity players that use a dynamic ad. And so just to give you an example, that would be if you know something about the customer. Let's say someone you know is looking for a family vacation based on some of the cookies you know or some of their searching behavior. The ad you show them programmatically will be different than if it's somebody traveling with friends somewhere. And that will really increase the likelihood of clicking through. So what our platform does is it does, like I mentioned, it does retargeting, prospecting, dynamic creative personalization, so showing dynamic ads. And what it does is, based on your KPIs and your goals, we act as kind of an automated media buyer for you. So instead of you saying, place my ads here, place my ads there, we look at what your goals and your KPIs are and decision where is the best place to spend your dollars. And so on the other side, on the supply side, we have access to about 90+% of all the global, you know, display, mobile, video, native inventory. So that when you're working through the platform, some of your ad dollars may be spent on mobile through this inventory that's available through our publishers. Some may be spent on video. We will help decide, hey, based on the criteria, this is where to spend your money. And so, you know, one thing is why, you know, this is different is that in the traditional model, you would have to go and sign up with each of these exchanges in order to access that supply of inventory. And that's not cheap. You know, a lot of them have minimums of $50,000, $100,000 a month. And so what we do is we strategically partner with all the supply sources globally, and we make their inventory accessible to you. So if you're asking, well, why would they do that? Because the customers we're actually working with are too small in terms of their spend to actually be customers of these partners. So for them, it strategically makes sense to access, you know, smaller travel brands, you know, maybe people spending as little as $5,000 a month through our platform. So it's kind of a win-win for our partners as well on that end.
So that's a great idea, because you were mentioning that there were people in the company coming from Criteo. Retargeting, it's one of the most used tools in the marketing portfolio for marketeers, but one of the problems that Criteo had was that it required a minimum monthly investment that made it impossible for many small-sized companies to invest. So your solution is great, because it's, as you said at the beginning, you're democratizing the usage of new technologies for companies that don't have this big, deep pocket to do it. And also, I think another advantage in your proposal is that with search, you focus mainly on the research and the booking phases, but with that, the supplied inventory that you have, I think you could be covering all the phases, including inspiration, and that's great advantage for companies, for not just trying always to compete in the most crowded phase.
One thing people don't necessarily realize is that, yes, direct response is a big part of what people use channels like programmatic for. But it's actually pretty big in branding as well. So, you know, when you're a smaller company, you sometimes think, well, maybe I don't do branding. But even like you said, upper funnel inspiration, re-engaging users, maybe that you want to retarget, but not necessarily looking to book right away. I think programmatic is great for that. One of the other, and I think when you mentioned Criteo, you know, one of the other things, because you know, we've had customers that have come over from Criteo or AdRule or other ones and switched to us. One of the things that we're trying to do is bring transparency to the space. You know, programmatic sometimes has a, you know, a reputation as being this opaque. You know, oh, there's viewability concerns. I don't really know if this is for me. You know, one of my pain points was when I was at a travel brand. I used Criteo, I used AdRoll, I used programmatic, and it was a black box. Yes, I got some results out, but I didn't know where my money was being spent. And I didn't know necessarily how much of it was going to media, which creatives are performing better. And so what we're doing with our self-serve is saying, for better or for worse, you know, we're just going to open it up to you so you can actually see, hey, this is what's actually performing well, what's not. Because what we heard from smaller marketers is they'd love insights into how these campaigns can actually help their other marketing channels. And so by giving them more transparency into results and reporting and, you know, exactly what is going towards media, I think it helps the overall ecosystem. You know, even though sometimes the results you're showing them may not be in the best interest of your company, I think it's just that transparency is needed in the space.
Listening to you is like listening to the answer to the marketeer wish list. That's actually what we've been hearing for many, many years. And could you tell us a little bit more about your rollout, your plans?
Yes. So we've so just as a background, we were doing programmatic for probably the last 2 or 3 years, but as a managed service. And really the impetus behind this was we had a lot of customers that were smaller. So we were working with large brands. We had hundreds of customers spending 100, 150,000 a month. But this was on a managed service basis. And then we started getting people asking us, hey, smaller brands, hey, can we use this? Can we use that? And at that point, it didn't make sense as a managed service. And that was really the impetus to say, okay, in order for smaller brands to use this, it really needs to be less of a managed service and needs to be something simple enough that they can use and not have to pay huge fees. And so we really started this idea about a year and a half ago. And then we rolled out the platform in beta a few months ago. And now we've officially rolled it out over the last few weeks. And so just on the platform itself, we'll have about 100 customers already using the platform in the first 6 weeks. And then, you know, one of the great things is that programmatic, while it's you know, something that is growing, it's still not a huge amount of all the marketing spend for these smaller brands. And so as the industry grows, you know, I think next year they said it's going to be over 50% of all digital non-search spend will be programmatic. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we're seeing just over the last 3-4 months, just the adoption and the desire to actually try out programmatic in the market is actually increased, you know, tenfold. So I think you're starting to see this point, you know, even in parts in Europe where people are like, you know what, maybe I can do programmatic, maybe I can take advantage of this. And so, you know, I think the fact that in a few weeks we'll have close to 100 customers using the platform bodes well for kind of not just us, but the overall adoption of programmatic by smaller travel brands in 2016. So I do think 2016 will be this kind of hockey stick kind of growth for programmatic, especially among travel and e-commerce.
I'm sure that they will have success because I think you have a focus on what is really useful for marketeers.
Yeah.
Similar to what Google did with AdWords. Very reliable and easy to use platform based on a transparent model.
Yes.
So that's why there is no small company that argues that search is not one of their marketing options. And programmatic, the way you have redefined it, it's like the AdWords for small companies. So they access.
That's our vision. Our vision is like the same way, you know, how search evolved. Initially, search was something that was outsourced. It was complex, and then over time, it became easier to use. So nowadays, you know, even the person who owns a grocery store or the person who owns a small, you know, a small 10-room hotel can go in, log in, create an account, and run an AdWords campaign. And that's really where we think programmatic will be going. And so what we're trying to do is say, okay, let's take that step there, because you're right. The mass adoption comes when, you know, that single marketer, that single property owner can come in and just log in and create an account. So actually right now, if you go to our platform, that's what you can do. For as little as $100, you can just say, hey, let me test something out on programmatic. And to me, that's just, you know, if that vision comes through where, you know, anybody could access this really previously complex technology, I think that will be key. But I think, like you mentioned, what had to happen is, three things we felt from a business model perspective that we had to do in order to reduce barriers was no monthly minimum spends. That's a huge thing. So now people are like, okay, you mean I can spend $2,000-3,000 or euros
Just to
on
try.
this? Yeah,
See
just to
that it
try.
works.
And then the other thing is no licensing costs. So we're a platform, but we're pay as you go. So people are sometimes wary. At least I would be like, oh, I don't want to spend every month give you this on a platform licensing fee. So even though from a business model sense, yeah, we could make more money doing it the other way, it's just the barriers to adoption need to be first overcome before you can get mass adoption. So that's why we decided to go with no minimum spend, and we decided to go with no monthly licensing fees.
I think it's, as I said, a very smart approach, because you have most of the people thought that technology should be applied in this landscape on a B2B model. So you create middleware to help others to sell services to the final customer, but you have gone the other way around, which I think it's the right solution. So you have applied all the technology to help the final client. So
Exactly.
it's not B2C exactly, because it's a company that's using your service. At the end of the day, the analogy is perfect, because the small travel company that's using your services is like a final consumer for you. So your technology development that you have made is perfectly designed for them, and obviously there are always more people potentially users of that technology, that intermediaries using that technology. So the last, thanks a lot, Ryan, for your sharing with us all these really interesting projects, and we wish you the best luck, and we hope the next year we have the same opportunity to talk.
Definitely.
And you tell us that you have no 100 users, thousands of users across the world, and I'm a firm believer of programmatic. I think that's one of the few ways in which really you can take control of your investment and know what is going on, and it will help as well to reuse the large differences between the competitors in not only the travel vertical and travel industry, but in other travels, and other verticals like e-tailers, retailers. So the last question, you mentioned that around 60% of your clients come from the travel vertical.
Yes.
But I guess that your platform is also a great opportunity for traditional retailers who want to become e-tailers, and they are, in most of the countries, they are late, and they are struggling for years investing in AdWords, and obviously the results are not the same as the large players. So I think you can give them a great opportunity to compete.
Travel and e-tail are two biggest areas, and that's where our expertise is people from travel and people from e-commerce, and we know those industries really are really looking for something at a that's not as expensive as search, because like you said, it's very hard to make margins running search if you're a smaller brand. But programmatic, it's not as expensive a landscape, at least not yet. And so there's a lot of opportunity there if you can just make it easy enough to use, and we're hoping to try to do that.
Last piece of advice from you. For a company who is beginning to compete now with no large marketing budgets, don't you think that embracing your solution will be even more productive for them to focus on video ads and mobile ads instead of trying to compete on the desktop space?
No, I agree. And we're actually seeing the biggest adoption this year has been mobile. Mobile has now crossed, even on our platform, over 50% of the spend that's going in there is going through mobile. But the biggest ones that are getting the most increase is video, and then also we're seeing a huge increase in native content marketing as well, and now the ability to do that programmatically is there. So that's, like you said, those are actually very high conversion opportunities for brands that invest in it. Now obviously the only thing is some smaller brands don't necessarily, especially on video, there's production costs and stuff to invest in that. So a lot of our customers don't start with video, they start with either display on mobile, or they do some mobile in-app or advertising, but over time they're looking to move to video, and I think video is a great investment down the road as well.
Thanks a lot for your time.